Hello, everyone. Cheryl Arkle, Caroline Overington. You meant to say your name.
Oh, hello. I'm Caroline Overington.
Hey, it's super exciting today. We do have Caroline Overington. She's sitting right there. This is Caroline's latest book. And what's it called?
You know, it's called The Cuckoo's Cry.
I say cuckoos, but you're right. It's cuckoos, isn't it?
Yeah. What is a cuckoo? I think it's a bird.
It's a bird.
It's a bird that takes up
It's your
residence.
book.
Well, it's a bird that takes up residence in another bird's nest.
Right.
Because in this book, she turns up on the doorstep of an elderly man and she says, "I'm related to you. Can I come in because I'm in trouble?" And because he's a good person, he says yes. And then the question for the reader is she really a good person? Is he really a good person? Mystery.
You tend to write mysteries like that, don't you? Where it feels normal, but everything is sinister.
Well, you know, it's interesting because the other day, just for fun, I was reading my Goodreads reviews and I started, you know how you can search by? So I searched by 1-star reviews. And a lot of them are things like, "This is a mystery which isn't very mysterious."
Oh, really? But that's life, isn't it?
This is a thriller with no thrills.
Now, listen, this is our What Are You Reading segment. So you all know how it works. And hello to the newbies. You tell us what you're reading and then we will tell us what we're reading. Now, I've got a stack of books here and so has Caroline. This is Caroline Overington. All the people are joining in. Look at this already. Caroline says, sharing the same name, different spelling. Hi, I'm reading Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dora Mcnulty for book club. Such a vivid and moving book as it travels through the seasons and the author's life. It is amazing that he was only 15-year-old when he wrote it. Wow. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bev says hi. Marie says hello. Christine says hi, Cheryl and Caroline. Absolutely loved your book, Caroline.
Didn't give me a 1-star review.
No, she wouldn't have given you a 1-star review.
Thank goodness.
And Christine, you probably, like me, you like a good kind of story that's slightly sinister. I think that kind of a gentle approach to writing is more realistic for me. Anyway, do you think that?
Well, I don't have like catastrophic murders.
No, that's right.
Them. I don't like all the gruesome stuff. It's not nice.
Mary says, so lovely to see you, Caroline. Love your work. And lovely to see you too, Mary Lou. No, lovely to see me. I'm just joking. You know I'm joking. Kirsten says, good afternoon, Cheryl and Caroline. Loved your book. There you go. Jill says, hi, ladies. Christine says, reading Sense and Sensibility, enjoying reading as an adult. That is a really interesting subject. You know, I was only speaking to somebody about that recently, that when you read books at a different age in your life, the different impact they have. Like if you read a book, say, at 50 versus reading a book at 25, it's almost reading a completely different book, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you're 25, you think you know everything. When you're 50, you realise you didn't know anything.
No. And when you're 50, you realise it's too late. You're never going to know everything anyway. Julie. Okay, now listen, you're going to be helping me. You're going to tell me what you're reading.
Okay, I don't want anyone to turn off, but I've been reading a lot of poetry. Now, everybody, I know
Don't
some people
turn
think...
off. Don't turn
Some
off.
people think poetry's not for me. These are 2 Australian poets. One is called Fishwork by Caitlin Mailing, and one is called Human Looking, which is by Andy Jackson. Andy Jackson has Marfan syndrome. Marfan syndrome is a syndrome where you grow really, really tall and your limbs become really, really long.
Wow. Okay.
And this book of poems is about his experience dealing with parents of children who are born with congenital differences.
Oh, wow.
So
gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Right.
And Fishwork, young poet from Australia, she spent 3 years on Lizard Island in the Great Barrier Reef looking at the impact of climate change on the reef and examining the feeder fish and the client fish.
Wow.
So the feeder fish come up to the client fish and eat all the gunk off them.
Oh.
It's delicious.
This is a beautiful, beautiful illustration.
You could frame that cover, couldn't you?
You could. Let me just hold it for you so we get that. Oh, there you go. Gorgeous.
Isn't that beautiful?
Absolutely beautiful.
Also read this.
Don't peak too early. You've got a bit of time.
Grounded by Alyssa Bryce. Do you know what she is for a living? What she does for a living?
No, I don't.
She's a soil scientist.
Wow.
She's a soil scientist. So you think to yourself, is it going to be about growing tomatoes? It isn't at all. It's about things like how they use soil to nail murderers. So what they did was they found some scraps of quarry on a shovel and on the suspect's shoes, and then they asked a soil scientist to find out where that soil came from, and they told them it was from that quarry. And when they went to the quarry, what did they find?
The shoe.
The bodies.
The bodies, right.
The
Wow.
bodies.
Okay, wow.
So this is, and it's not just, it's also about how to tunnel out if you become a prisoner of war.
Oh, right.
Because the risk is if you start tunneling, that it'll collapse on you. So you have to know how to tunnel out if you're trying to be escaping from being a prisoner of war. This is fantastic.
I think that might be useful if ever we're in prison.
The science is interesting.
It is interesting. Do you know, this is kind of related, but kind of not. But because of the rain that we're getting in Sydney, people are telling me that their dogs are all sick in the park when I'm in the park in the morning. And apparently it's because the dogs are drinking the
mucky
water that's got, bacteria. And lucky my dog doesn't like to dirty himself. He's just not into that. But a lot of the bigger dogs are. But anyway, there you go. I think that's kind of related. Julie's reading The Resistance Girl by Mandy Robotham, an education of the Norwegian World War II experience. Bev is
she's related to Michael Robotham.
I don't think so. No, we've checked that. Bev is reading The German Wife by Kelly Rimmer. Kelly Rimmer just bought a bookstore as well. Did you read about that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in Orange, I think. Is that right? Fabulous. Can someone check that for me? Oh, right. So
how fabulous.
Yeah, so big shout out to Kelly. She's a great writer and now she owns a bookstore in Orange. Marie says, hi, have just finished The Secret Life of Connie Starr and I'm now reading The Murder Rule. Absolutely love both. Christine is reading Stonetown by Margaret Hickey. Now, this is our book of the week. It's called Woman on Fire and it's by Lisa Barr. Isn't that a great cover? I love these covers. It's a historical thriller featuring, it's got an art heist, it's got secret sacrifice, and I also recorded a podcast with Lisa Barr, and it's wonderful, and it's coming out soon. So don't forget, tell us what you're reading. This is Caroline Overington. I'm Cheryl Arkle. I've got so many things. 40 years of writing. 40 years since his first book came out. They're doing a whole rejacket of the backlist, and I recorded a podcast with him on Friday, and that's coming out, I think, this week. Look out for it. It's great. He's a wonderful. Do you love it?
Who doesn't love him?
I love him.
I love the way Cloud Street, the personality he gives to the house. Such a good idea.
Do you know, he says when he's writing story, the place becomes before the characters.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Christine is reading Stonetown. We talked about that. Judy is reading Virgil Wander by Leif Unger. Unusual book, but she's enjoying it. Anthony, hi Anthony. He's reading Aussie Folks Are Fun. Oh, the US guy loves them. Okay.
Maybe he wants to ask you out.
So, hi, Anthony.
Hi, Anthony.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, I'm going to talk about Indira Naidu. Do you love her?
I love this book.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I recorded a podcast too with her. Indira's sister during lockdown took her own life. And it's the story of that and how Indira and the family dealt with it and how terrifying it was and how difficult it was. It's a beautiful, beautiful story about grief, about hope. And as you know, my mother died recently, so it was really a beautiful book for me to read as well. So if you're suffering any grief or you just want to read something beautiful, that's her, and the podcast is out now too. She's very lovely, beautifully spoken, love her. Anthony, thanks for joining us from the USA. Louise says hi. Wynne says reading Miles Franklin Winner, Bodies of Light by Jennifer Brown, and it's brilliant. She's loving it.
I loved it too.
You did? Okay. Melissa says hi. I'm reading the Shelley Bay Ladies Swimming Circle by Sophie Green. We love Sophie. Anthony says hi again. Ross is reading No Picnic on Mount Kenya by Felice Bunzi. I don't know that. Benuzzi. Kerry is reading Now But Dripping by Julie Howard. Just started it and is enjoying it. Do you know that? No. Cindy is reading The Perfect Lie by Jo Spain. Just finished The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. Beth is very, very lovely writer, and she's very popular with Better Reading, and she did a Facebook Live for us a few weeks ago. Anthony says he loves poetry. There you go. Do you want to talk about your next book?
Well, some people say that they don't want to read too much poetry because they think it's going to be difficult or it's not going to be a narrative. They're not going to be able to pick it up and get lost in it. But I say that that's not true. If you're looking for a way into First Nations poetry, Alfie Shravsky's Homecoming is beautiful. Now, there was some debate about this, like, is it actually poetry? So, for example, what she does is she has a letter in here from an Indigenous man who's trying to get his children back from being in care. And he says things like, for example, in all my dealings with you, I have never found you sympathetic. How one-sided and biased you are. I don't know why you're trying to victimize me. I just want to have my children in my care. I remind you, I am their father. Now, that's an actual letter that he wrote to the actual government at the time. But of course it reads like poetry because it's straight from the heart. This is really a beautiful introduction. If you're looking for First Nations poetry, this is a good way in.
Do you know, I devour short stories. I quite like them. And particularly during COVID, where I found my concentration in the first year was just dreadful, because I think we were all just worried about what the future was going to be. So I dipped in and out a short story, which I absolutely loved. And I did start reading a bit of poetry because in a way, each poem is like a short story, isn't it?
It is, yeah, a really beautiful short story.
That's right.
And also you can get caught up in the beauty of the language. So sometimes when you're reading, for example, a crime fiction, you're caught up in the story and you're racing to the end to find out what happens. But with poetry, you can really get lost in the language. And sometimes they say things and you think, oh my goodness, that's exactly right. That's exactly what something looks like because they've described it in such a beautiful way.
Have you been reading any of is it Evelyn Arrowlewin?
Yes, I have actually been reading hers as well.
Yeah.
First Nations poets at the moment, in my view, are retelling the story of Australia. You know, for a long time in this country, we only told the colonial story, the bush story. But Australia is really a story in three parts, as Noel Pearson has beautifully described. It is the Indigenous heritage, the ancient Indigenous heritage, which is so precious. It's the colonial institutions like government and the rule of law and the courts. And then it's the migrant experience with all of the people and the customs and the culture and the food from all around the country. They are the three strands of our story. So if we only tell the colonial story, you're only hearing a tiny part of it. We have to tell all three. So I always think that First Nations poets are doing us such a great service at the moment because they're talking about a time before the colonial experience, before the British institutions that give us such a robust democracy arrived, what it was like then, to a reminder that we're more than one story here.
I like that. That's very lovely. Alona says Stonetown by Margaret Hickey is what she's reading. And she says, love your books, Caroline. There we go. Thank you, Alona.
No 1 stars reviews from Alona.
Louise says reading Finding Eddie by Caroline Beecham.
Yeah.
Anna is reading I Want to Get into Poetry.
See,
That's
there you
Anna.
go. You see that there's a lot. I would start here. But don't miss out on fish work. If you like the Great Barrier Reef and you're wondering what's happening out there. And, you know, she's dealing with these Portuguese marine biologists who are on this ship, whose job it is to go out there and take measurements as to the number of fish and the number of reef. And you can kind of tell there's a bit of a frisson. Like she's a poet and they sort of think, what's a poet doing out here on the boat? But what she's doing is bringing to life what is crucially important work. I mean, we have to understand what's going on out there and what kind of country are we? How amazing that we would send a poet out for 3 years to document what's happening on the reef. There's great things about us. I think it's really great things about us.
Okay, shall I segue to somebody else that's so wonderful? Geraldine Brooks.
amazing.
Isn't she a national treasure?
She is.
We have been so lucky to have her. She's been to the office. She was here last week. We recorded a podcast with her. We actually did a What Are You Reading segment with her. Oh, no, we didn't. We did an interview, an in-conversation with her. Anyway, we love her. We know you love her. That's her new book course, and everybody is loving that.
Aren't they?
They are. Do you want to talk about that book?
Well, this is not yet out. And I often get in trouble sometimes when I'm talking on my Instagram about books that are not yet out because this is not the cover. There will be a proper cover. It's got, you know, funny writing on it, uncorrected.
It is a cover, though.
It is. It looks like this, but it'll be better.
Yes.
And sometimes when I'm on my Instagram and I hold up books that are not yet out, and then I get all these people saying, why are you talking about books that are not yet out? Because we get them ahead of time because we were supposed to read them.
This is the final cover.
Very except for that. It's almost got a little recommendation on it. It's almost the same. But this is Richard Mchugh. He's from Sydney. He's a Sydney writer. very well-known legal family, the Mchughs. And what's fascinating to me about
And
this,
a friend of mine.
is he a friend of yours?
Yes, Richard's a friend of
okay.
mine.
And so well, this book I found really interesting because who doesn't like a billionaire mining heiress? It's got a billionaire mining heiress in it. It's got some high-vis workers, some high-vis workers as well. And we have a situation where the two worlds are going to collide, the owner of the mine and the man who works in the mine. And there's a girlfriend in between who kind of needs some money from mining people to do good social justice works. So you can see how the worlds are going to collide. I'm only a little bit into it, but I am interested so the reason why I sometimes hold up books that are not out yet is because I get them and then I send them out to review to critics and professional readers and so on to tell me whether or not we should review them in the pages of The Australian. And so sometimes I'm a bit ahead of time, but I do get scolded. This one is not yet out. I think it's middle of August.
End of September. 1st of September.
1st of September.
But I will tell you, don't you think that he writes Succession-like in a way?
The people, yeah,
because they are the people that he knows.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And I have heard that some readers are a bit sick of being out in the bush because they've been out doing crime on dusty roads and dirt tracks and dirt cabins for too long. So this brings you right back into the beach. There's a beautiful scene where he's having his butler serve them lunch in his home overlooking the beach at Bronte, which is very beautiful. So if you're a bit tired of outback noir,
go for this.
The cutting will bring you back to the city.
Now, just to talk about you a little bit, that you're the editor of...
I'm the literary editor at The Australian and the Weekend Australian.
That's right.
So I have books pages. So I run a book review every day of the week. And I also have books pages on the weekend where we run somewhere between 7 and 10 different reviews, including Cheryl Arkle's notable books, where Cheryl goes through. I think of it as kind of like a bookshop window. It goes through and says, these are some really important titles that you all may want to know about. We also do longer form reviews. We review poetry, we review politics, international fiction, local fiction, sport, history. I try to keep it about 85% Australian if I can. I like to do that, but I like to mix up the genres. So we do a lot of poetry. We also run a lot of poems. This weekend, for example, we have a new poem. So it gives the poets in the community an opportunity to get published as well.
Yeah. Now, you've also got an Instagram page.
I'm very new at this.
We're going to put a little photo of your Instagram. I love it. Here's Caroline's Instagram. We want you to jump on and to like it. If you like Instagram, you'll love this. But also, you do wonderful videos. Can you do a video? Can I put you on the spot and just say, what would you say about this in one of your videos?
Well, why don't we do it on this one? Because this one I haven't finished reading. So if I was doing this one, what I do is I would say... Yes.
Go on.
I am a young woman whose sister has taken her life during the pandemic that swept the globe in 21-22. And I am trying to find ways to rebuild my sense of self, rebuild my family, and find peace in the wake of this tragedy. I am the space between the stars, a beautiful new book by Indira Naidu. I do them like that.
So that's
the idea that people can find out. It's not Instagram is not about me. It's about books. And if I do one a day, I reckon I can do 364. Maybe I'll get Christmas Day off.
Yeah.
Although Christmas is a good time for books. And because I'm like you, absolutely passionate about the idea that the only thing you should really be spending your money on is books.
There you go. So jump on and like Caroline's Instagram page. Okay, Kate said, I have just finished reading With Love from Wish & Co. by Minnie Dark. Oh, lovely. And currently enjoying Eva Scott's While You Were in the Country, both out next week. There you go, Kate, ahead of all of us. Sally Ann is reading Catch Me If I Fall by Barry Johnsberg. It's a YA, and I'm zooming through it, and I'm liking it a lot. Faye has just started Trust by Hernan Diaz. Love poetry, Caroline. I will look those up. We will also have a list of them for you to look at. Susan says, hi, reading short stories for a change. Love them. In the Time of Foxes by Joe Lennon, which I'm enjoying. Christine says, how do you learn to appreciate poetry?
Gee, that's a good question, Christine, because I was a little intimidated by poetry when I started as the book's editor. I thought I didn't know enough. And the best thing about poetry is it isn't really about the intellectual exercise. It's about how it makes you feel. And the little selections, poetry selected works that I've collected for you today and just shown will make you feel things. You read them and you just have emotion. And I think that is the way to start with poetry. You can worry later on about all of the stuff that you need to know about who are the big poets and why they're important and so on. But for now, if you're just starting out, pick up a book of poetry and just let yourself feel something.
Do you know, I totally agree with that. And Christine, I think the appreciation of poetry I think because of our schooling, because of how we grew up, we're frightened of it and we think we don't know how to understand it and how to read it. But really just take it for exactly what it is.
Yeah, because no one's going to come and give you a C-, which is what happened last time we read poetry.
That's
the
exactly
teacher
right.
came along and said, no, you didn't understand this. But now you can just read it for love.
Anyway, Corey is reading. Corey said we sound really interesting. I think Corey means you sound interesting. But he's reading 537 Days of Winter by David Noff. Have you read that? That is wonderful.
There's a couple of Antarctica books out at the moment. They're all really good. And if you like that idea of the world of ice and being completely alone out in the middle of nowhere and exposed to the elements.
But also David was out there with a team of people and they got stuck because of COVID. And they were only meant to be there for a couple of months and end up being there a year. So you're not just stuck with yourself out there, you're stuck with a team of people that you may or may not like. So it's a really good book. I recorded a podcast with him and I think Rose will put that link in the comments. Well, Corey's telling us he was the station leader of an Australian Antarctica base and was meant to be there for one season and due to COVID had to stay. He was one of 24 people. He did talk in his podcast. There was one person who didn't get on with, which I reckon that's pretty bad. Good. Joe said, I loved Cuckoo's Cry. I really enjoyed your books, Caroline. Currently reading The Arsonist by Chloe Hooper. I mean, I love Chloe. I read Bedtime Story recently and just absolutely loved it. I also enjoyed The Arsonist. Anthony is reading lots of memoirs and The Champagne War by Fiona McIntosh. I've enjoyed lots of her books, is what Anne's saying. I've got to get through a few more. Where am I at? Oh, gosh, we had the lovely Louise last night on Facebook Live, Wednesday, 8 p.m. She was talking about this wonderful book called Holy Women. She was a former preacher and she explores women's place in the role of religion. Pretty serious subject, but also very accessible and very readable. Do you know him?
Yeah, I sure do.
Oh, isn't he wonderful?
Yeah, I sure
we
do.
love him so much. This is his new book, Pomare. And these are his Buckley's titles. The Wrong Woman is out now.
The J is for Josh, she told me.
Yes, it is, because he was at our Melbourne dinner.
Was he?
We were calling him Josh rather than JP, but such a fine young man, a New Zealander living in Australia. What else have we got? Oh, Kimberly Starr, The Map of Night. That's out now. It's a family drama. And it's about an astronomer who goes missing. Yeah. Isn't that a beautiful cover? What else have you got? Have you got anything else?
No, you've ripped through my list.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to read more of the comments. I've got some more as well. The kids in the office are laughing at us. We've known each other for a very long time. I think that comes across. Lisa is reading Dancing with the Enemy by Diane Armstrong, who we had in recently, beautiful woman. Also, listen to her podcast interview, which we did, loving both. Thank you, Lisa. Re-podcast, if you enjoy listening out to our podcast, please remember to give us a 5-star rating and write a little review because that sends you up in the algorithm. Do you know we're almost at 1 million downloads?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Holy moly.
I remember when you started this from a laptop in your bedroom.
That's right. And now we're up to
that. With all these people sitting around us.
I know. We're very, very lucky.
You're a successful Australian businesswoman and you don't get enough credit for that.
Do you think? Well, these lovely people give me all the credit in the world.
True.
They really do.
I'm going to nominate you for a Telstra Woman Businesswoman.
Okay. Everyone's laughing in the office. Faye is looking forward to reading some of the books that we've talked about. Anna Loder says that whatever we say is fantastic. Angela just finished Where the Crawdads Sing. Amazing. Have you seen the movie yet?
I have not. Have you?
No, but the team went and they really enjoyed it.
They loved it?
They really did.
I saw Elvis, though. That's not a book.
No, that's not a book. Did you like it?
with my whole heart.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
it's
think
worth
I will.
the price of admission
Mm.
for That's All Right, Mama.
Yeah.
That's enough.
I think I'm going to like it. Mary Lou says, Caroline, how many books do you read a week in your position as literary editor for The Australian? That's a good question.
I feel my job is to send the books out to critics to read and review for me, which is what Cheryl does, and what we've got a range of really fantastic critics. My job really is to stay on top of what's happening, what's coming out, what people might like to read. Have I got the mix in the pages right? But how many do I personally read? Of course, no more than 1 or 2 a week, same as anyone. I'm not a magician. I can't read more than that. And often I'll start but not finish. And do you know why? Because I'll start and I'll be like, wow, this is amazing. And then the next book will come in. And I'll be like, wow,
that's amazing.
This is amazing. And then I'll think, hang on, I haven't finished that one. But by then I've got another one on top. And so that's how it normally goes for me.
Do you know, when we release the top 100, we ask our readers at home, all these lovely people, how many books they've read in a year or how many books of the top 100 they've read. And we get numbers as high as 50, 60,
One
70.
a week?
Yeah. Some wonderful readers out there.
Yeah.
Michael's reading Reclaim Your Power by Craig Ball.
Yeah.
Julie is reading Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter. Hasn't she been around for a while?
Karen, I think Karen.
Oh,
Karen Slaughter. I adore her. I think she's wonderful.
Mary is reading Journey from Venice by Ruth Cracknell.
Oh, yeah.
Jill is reading Horse by Geraldine Brooks, which we've talked
which we just had.
Yes, which we talked about. And a collection of crime thriller stories called Dark Deeds Down Under. Mary is reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Just finished The Return by Anita Frank. A great read. See how many books these lovely people read. Natalie says hi. Sally is reading Table for Eight and enjoying it. I've lost my spot now. Do you want to?
You're
here. Here I am. Christine just finished. The Year of Wonders.
By Geraldine as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
By Geraldine Brooks. It's now one of her favourite books. So Geraldine is only one of 3 Australians to have won the Pulitzer Prize.
I know, and I think the only one for fiction, isn't she?
Yeah, she is.
She is, yeah.
So
she's astonishing. She started life as a journalist on the Sydney Morning Herald.
Yeah.
And then she went to the United States as a correspondent, and her career has been amazing. March would be her most favourite book, reimagining 3 women from the point of view of, how the father goes away to the Civil War. Like, that's such a great idea.
That's what she won the Pulitzer for.
Yeah, that's right.
March.
Such a great idea.
Paula is reading The Eulogy by Jackie Bailey. Natalie just finished The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. Addictively fascinating. That's a nice description. Jill is reading Horse. Keisha is reading The Registrar. Fantastic story of a woman trading to be. She came to our Melbourne dinner. She was so delightful. First book. And she's, by trade, she's a hand surgeon.
Yeah. Not
making your hands look pretty, but if you chop off your finger and she has to sew it back on, that's what she does. And she was saying that's increasingly harder to do.
Why harder? I would have thought it easier.
I would have thought so too. Nancy's reading The Coast by Eleanor Limprecht. Fabulous, if not confronting read. Angela says, good afternoon, everyone. I've just finished The Nurses' Ward. Just loved it. Would love another book to read once I'm over COVID. I mean, COVID. You're at the right place, Angela, and I hope you feel better. But we've got
better soon.
So many books to read. And for those of you that don't know, this is live now, but also you can watch it afterwards and you can still ask questions. I read all the comments at night. Couple of things we need to remember is go like Caroline's Instagram page. What is it called?
It's a baby Instagram page. I think it's called Overington C, which is just my surname.
Overington C.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
I only started this because my kids said it would be a good idea, and within about 10 minutes, I was addicted.
I love Instagram.
Totally addicted.
I love Instagram. She is addicted. She does it really well. Don't forget to rate our podcast. Give us a 5-star rating and write a little review every Wednesday night. Who's coming up next Wednesday? Can somebody tell me?
Vicky from our dinner.
Vicky's, yeah.
The Believed.
The Believed.
Yeah.
She's on next week.
So she won a big crime prize.
Yes,
she
did.
Crime prize.
Yes.
And she does an amazing podcast as well.
Right. Yes. Okay. So she's coming up.
But her book is very new. You might not have it yet.
Yeah, I can't
It's very
find it.
new.
But anyway, that's what's happening. What else is happening? I think that's about it. Thank you so much. As I said, keep your comments coming. We read you'll have to go and read all the comments as well tonight.
I'm always
you do.
on your side.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
I feel like the nuisance. I'm like, hello.
This is Caroline Overington. Thank you so much for joining us today. Team is going to come and say goodbye to everybody.
I
I
got
will-
to.
Yeah, we like to
Are
get
they still
everybody.
talking to me after I ate all their candy?
Yeah, no, they're good. They're good. They're very generous that way. Natalie, Dex, Jane, Jasmine, and Rose. Okay,
Hey.
so that's it for us this week. We'll see you same time next week, Thursday, 2:00. Thank you, Caroline, for joining us.
Thank you for
today.
having me.